I accidentally stopped my recording just now. I am so sorry about it. Okay, but what I was trying to say is that for 858, the reason why it should never be using double deckers in the first place is because, yes, you have that section from Khatib to Changi Airport, which is mostly expressway. But the thing is, there is Jalan Kayu as well. And then there is one more location whereby a lot of passengers alight and board at the same time, which is TP bus stop. And not just that, in the residential sector as well, you got Yishun and then Avenue 5, Sembawang Road, as well as, Sembawang, and then Woodlands, Avenue 4 and 9, as well as Woodlands. You have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or even more of them. You have like 8 locations whereby a lot of passengers they alight and board. And if you use double deckers, even if it's like 3D2S, where like there is like a higher chance of the upper deck carrying air simply because like for short distances, especially along the blue sectors, you know, people wouldn't be inclined to move up to the upper deck if it's just a short distance. And okay, it's like even if you use 3D2S, you claim that like it speeds up boarding and alighting and stuff like that. It doesn't work. The reason why bendy buses work is because there is only one story. Everybody is on story 1 and not story 2. And because of that, you get the benefits of like everybody being on the first floor, as well as like you got people alighting fast and people boarding fast. And when you have a lot of these points along the route whereby there's a lot of packs exchange, you should use bendy buses and not double deckers in the first place. And this is probably the same for like 53 as well. Now, I know Bishan interchange cannot really park bendy buses, but it's like some of these airport services, even if there is no like double decker bus restriction, they should still continue to run bendy buses. In fact, the only bus services that are truly like, more suitable for double decker buses, I would say is 36. Simply because it, more people they go up because they're taking the bus to like Suntec, Orchard. Not everybody is like getting off at Marine Parade. So yeah. So again, just a refresher. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion. That's okay, but respectfully, this part in red, I disagree with this part. Everything here I've already stated in the previous video. Okay, regarding this, ex-SBS transit bus fans, the reason why this is being brought up is because SBS Transit, they once trialed SBS 998Y and 999U, both of which got sold off to New Zealand. Okay, so because of this, okay, when it comes to the operators themselves, I'm not talking about LTA, but the public transport operators themselves. SBS Transit, they have a history of not really liking minibuses. But SMRT, which used to be Trans Island Bus Services, they are different. They actually like the bendy buses. So the whole issue is that if the public transport operators themselves, they don't like the bendy buses and they don't want to run them because of like legitimate reasons, be it like, safety, logistics, or like maintenance costs, training costs, and all of this. If the PTOs themselves don't want to run the bendy buses, then I'm like, okay, fair enough. But now you have a case whereby SMRT is okay running them, Tower Transit is okay running them. It's just that they are kind of in a financial issue whereby they don't really want to spend a lot of money on the bendy bus training program. That's why they're kind of like halting it at the moment. But okay, in general, if the PTOs, they want to run Bendy buses, but that one person, the deputy director of bus assets, is stopping them, then that's not okay. Okay, but the reason why this comment is even made is because they're just suspecting that a lot of these so-called scholars are basically bus fans that used to be from SBS Transit, and the truth is it's not necessarily the case. A lot of them, they aren't even from SBS Transit. A lot of them, they are just people with like zero bus expertise, and they do damage to the Singapore bus industry, stuff like that. They aren't even bus fans in the first place. But I can get why this comment was even made in the first place, even though in reality that might not be the case. And the comment below them, double deck buses are not effective because of the unidirectional travel flow. Okay, that's correct. You can only enter one terminal from the departure drives, causing buses to make detours. That's why no DDs on. Okay, I'm not really sure about uh, like this entire part, but this unidirectional travel flow, yeah, you can say so. So there is nothing wrong with this comment. It's kind of correct. This one is quite self-explanatory. I don't have to explain this, but basically the part underlined in red, it's a disaster. But then the same person goes on to state that this, and then they state this. Okay, correct. Certain trunk routes, yeah, correct. Although I would just like to point out the previous part where he said that 3D2S is a solution. No, it is not. Next comment, they seem suitable for feeders in the north. Okay, not only that, they're also suitable for like Boon Lay and Tampines as well. But yes, this is generally correct. LTA should have purchased more since day one. As long as you get rid of that deputy director, maybe you can purchase more. I think that double deckers or bendies will not be strict. Okay, I don't get what this is saying. Some routes will still need to have bendies as the conditions, and also okay, I get what he's talking about. And also for trunk, okay, if someone does not want to go up but he's alive, okay, this is correct. This is why bendies are the win. Okay, are faster. I don't know what faster means, but they only okay. One floor is correct. But double deckers need longer to disembark as they have two levels and sometimes people block. This is correct. Double deckers are also met with challenges too, such as Changi Airport and low bridges, but they are okay. This part in my previous video, I've already stated that the stated things about the turning radius. So this part, I'm sorry about it. It's wrong. Bendies, on the other hand, are able to pass through low areas but cannot go through. Again, this is exactly the same thing. I've already talked about it in part 2, the previous part, so you can go check that out. So I am not on either Bendy's or DD side. I'm just standing in the middle. Okay. Next comment. I'm also in the Bendy buses side, and I would maybe think that service 187. Okay, good point, because even though I didn't rate 187 very high in terms of like suitability ranking for Bendy buses, what they are saying is basically from Lakeside to Lakeside MRT to Jurong West or East Avenue 1, or you can even say Bukit Batok Central to Bukit Batok West Avenues 2475. Basically, he's just trying to say that pax flow, passenger flow, faster embarkation and disembarkation. So yeah, that's correct. Service 61, okay, I disagree with this, but again, everybody is entitled to their own opinion, and this one is there's like nothing that's like fundamentally wrong with it. It's just that it's not really worth it to put Bendy buses on 61. 187 on weekdays. Okay, he wants to confine them on weekdays. Actually, weekends they might still need them. I don't really I don't really know why it's like on weekdays and 824 on weekends. Okay, I don't really get this part, but in general, this comment has a lot of value because he did offer some insights on specific bus services. So yeah. Next comment. To my thinking, this is not Hong Kong. Yes, Bendy buses can be four-door mode too. Okay, yeah, you can consider this as well. Most 242 passengers demand demand more on quicker departures rather than fleet capacity. Okay, I think what he's trying to say is that 242 doesn't really need the capacity, it just needs like the frequency because people get on the bus and then they get off quickly, kind of thing. The elderly who take 242 regularly could not get a seat as some people are stubborn to give up their seats and not many people use the upper deck on DDs which are like only sporadically deployed. So basically he's saying that you can put like one or two bendy buses on 242. Although in this case I don't think it's necessarily worth it. I think 242 could just use a frequency boost during peak hours and I think that would be fine. At CAC checkpoint, the security check procedures usually takes 3 minutes during peak hours and if SBS Transit deploys bendies on the CAC services, the police officers would have to go through the trouble of squeezing through the crowd to check for passes. Okay, this is basically airport cargo road. Oh no, sorry, airline road. So I think this point is saying that like, okay, I'm not even sure if this is like saying for or against bendy buses on CAC. So is he saying double deckers are not suitable or is he saying bendy buses are not suitable? I'm not really sure, but okay, in general, I wouldn't really put the bendy buses on 9, 19, and 89 because those people still take they still commute for like quite a distance. So I wouldn't even think about like putting bendy buses on like the services that I just mentioned. Next comment, he is saying that if it's a double decker, it's more scenic. Okay, more scenic is not a reason, but this is just more of like just a casual comment, so I wouldn't fault him for this. Don't need to squeeze with standing passengers. Okay, because you're not allowed to stand on the upper deck, correct? Bendy buses, more people would move to the rear since there's a door at the back, faster flow, yes. Although I would say Singaporeans in general, they're just like Japanese people. It's like if you don't give them a bendy bus, you just use like a single decker bus, they just wouldn't be inclined to move to the back, they just clog the front. Yes, it happens in Japan as well. It's like for some strange reason, you put a bendy bus on Japan, they'll automatically move back. But if you put a normal bus, they would just clog the front for I don't know what reason. And it's even the case for like you board from the front and you alight from the middle door. Even for services that are like front board, back alight, and not back board, front alight. For some reason, these people they just love to clog the front, and arguably it's even worse than Singapore. Okay, I should say that Singapore and Japan, when it comes to single decker buses, Japan is slightly worse because of the clogging behavior. But for bendy buses, I think Japanese they're a lot more considerate when it comes to moving to the rear as compared to Singaporeans because I myself have seen people on board the bendy buses they do move all the way till the third door but they don't move all the way inside the aisle you know unless they realize that they're blocking the way or the bus captain tells them to move to the back. But okay, generally, this is correct that it is easier to ask people to move to the rear as opposed to forcing people to climb to the upper deck when they're not physically fit or like they're only commuting for less than 5 stops, and there is no reason for them to even go up in the first place. So generally, this is correct. Both single and double decker causes people to crowd at the rear door, so it's easier to alight, but causing the rear aisle to not fill up. Bendy's wouldn't have this issue. Okay, I would say this is still a stretch, but I get what he's trying to say. That people, it is exactly the same as this point. The fact that it is easier to push people to the back of the bus as opposed to up the second floor. For 859, I think people would rather take the short working trips as opposed to. Okay, the phrasing is not so good, but I get what he means. He's just saying 859 only has one double decker. Okay, to be honest, this part is like kind of irrelevant, but he's just saying that because there is already the existence of the short working trips 859A and B, that high capacity buses in general are not really the priority. And yeah, even back in the day, 859 only used to run like Bendy buses during peak hours, and I forgot if it was like weekday or weekend, but again, it's just basically saying that 859 is not a priority. Even admin has said I don't have to wait for the actual 859 because 859A already exists. I wouldn't have to wait. Only bad point is when this one gets like 15 minutes frequency, they have no choice but to squeeze in 859. So again, maybe putting like a few bendy buses on like the main 859 and not the short working trips, maybe that would help, but again, it's not really a priority. But okay, I get your point. And again, an actual commuter on 859 has been saying the exact same thing. Okay, so I feel that during peak hours, Bendy buses take a shorter time to pick up passengers at a bus stop outside the train. Yeah, yeah. This is very important because the MRT stations are basically where the PAX exchange happens. On the other hand, double deckers take a longer time at the same stop as many people crammed at the lower deck of the bus as they are lazy to go. Okay, the thing is that lazy isn't really a good word to describe. It is more of like it's, as I've said, it's impractical to go up the upper deck for like less than 5 stops. So it's not really a matter about laziness. It's just it makes no sense. It's illogical. I've experienced this before, so I feel double deckers are not fit to replace the 3D2S. Sorry, I feel that double deckers or 3D2S are not fit to replace the bendy buses. Yeah, this is correct. The advantage of me choosing bendy is that it doesn't need to waste too much time for a crowd to. Again, same point, quicker disembarkation and embarkation as well, because if people alight faster, then you give more space for people to board and like fill up the bus. Whereas the disadvantage is, again, this one can be mitigated. I've already talked about this, that whoever is constantly harping about the space issues for bendy buses, they clearly don't know how to manage them. Okay, that's all. Okay, the next point states that bendies for crowded short services, MRT shuttle, okay. Single deckers for those services that are not that crowded, okay. Long distance, okay, it's not really about the crowded. It's not really about the crowd levels, but short services, long services, and services with little demand. Okay, I get what this means. I'm on the bendy side ever since 912 lost. Okay, this is basically referring to the period of time whereby they removed 912 because they removed the bendy buses on 912 for a period of time because of the silver zones along Woodlands Ring Road on the East Loop. So this is because at that time they sort of like underestimated how well the bendy buses could actually turn. So they removed it and then they reinstated it eventually. So the whole point about just because no, the whole point about you introduce a silver zone and bye bye to Bendy buses. That is not true at all. Like 302, 804, 806, 807 at Yishun Ring Road, I think in between Street 31 and Avenue 11, or even 912, they go inside silver zones and they use many buses fine. Again, it's not because it's a silver zone, it just depends on how the roads are shaped. The reason why 225, it's also a silver zone, but the reason why this service cannot use bendy buses is because of how the roads are already shaped. Like even before it got converted into a silver zone, that road was never like suitable for bendy buses in the first place. Again, it depends on the road shape. Every road is shaped differently. So, yeah. And had B9TLs as their replacement, I was upset. Bendy buses are much easier to board and disembark, and traffic flow in the bus is much smoother. Okay, correct. It's also safer because you don't have to climb up and down any staircase while the bus is moving. Correct, because that deputy director has been telling his employees to ignore all the double-decker staircase related accident statistics, which is just so messed up. Okay, there's like more to this comment. Let me just okay, what is he saying? It's also safer because, okay, if the LTA wanted more three-door buses, they should have gone for the Bendys, correct? And not this rubbish, correct? When it comes to practicality, the A24 is still able to carry more passengers than... Yes, correct. Good point, while having that third door. I'm sure that there are other Bendy buses which can navigate around tight corners. The A24 is already able to navigate quite well, so yeah. Absolutely no for short distance feeder, cause you see almost empty at the upper deck. They should buy a few more bendy buses for feeder routes, trunk which serve more than 8. Okay, so when it comes to this one, there isn't necessarily a hard and fast rule stating that like, oh, because if it's more than this distance, you should use double deckers. No. Okay, so this comment is good in the sense that like everything is spot on, but regarding this one, I've already talked about it previously about how 858 or even 184, 962, all of these, they definitely exceed 8.5 kilometers. Yeah, he's saying that trunk bus services which serve more than 8.5 kilometers per hour use DDs. Okay, uh, not really, because the thing is like a lot of feeders they actually exceed 8.5. Okay, I get what they mean. It's that it's again it has to do with like whether passengers they're taking like short or long distances. Yeah, it's more about the passengers like whether they are commuting for short and long distances as opposed to like, oh, the routes that are longer than... It's not really about the actual distance of the routes. It's okay, I would say that in general, it's not about the actual distance, like total distance of the routes, but it's more of like how long do the passengers actually stay on board the bus. Like 184 is a good example, like Clementi MRT to Neon Poly. Because you have that sector, it is not worth running double deckers at all, even though 184 is exceeds like 8.5 kilometers, like the entire route. So yeah. Okay, I kind of yapped a little bit. And again, the same point. It is basically saying that if you use double decker buses, you incur a lot of like basically you waste a lot of time at the bus stops trying to like embark or disembark people. This goes for like normal double decker buses as well as the stupid 3D2S. It's exactly the same thing. So because of that, you have to keep adding runtime to your service, and you make the bus service like go really slow. It's like you should be okay, feeder buses in general, they should be running bendy buses and not double decker buses, unless there are like restrictions along the road, like 222, 225, 241, and stuff like that. And people have been telling me that 240, Kang Ching Road has to be widened, stuff like that. But you're supposed to like use the bendy buses as the standard uh, when it comes to planning your timetables. Because single decker buses, they actually spend the least time. It's not actually bendy buses. Bendy buses, they take more passengers, but for like that amount of passengers, it is able to like basically the disembarkation and embarkation is like much faster. But single deckers still beat bendy buses when it comes to amount of time spent at the bus stop itself. So with that in mind, you should actually use bendy buses as the standard and not double decker buses as the standard. So if you base your standard based on double decker buses, your bendy buses, your single decker buses, they would end up driving really slowly because it's like you add too much time, all your buses, they have to go really slowly because the bus is early. You added way too much excess runtime because you base your timetables based on the double decker buses, and that should not be the case. And right now, their strategy is single decker, single decker. They're upgrading this thing to a double decker, they're upgrading this. But instead of doing this, two single decker buses, or even two double decker buses, you can just replace them with like just one bendy bus. And okay, that's not a good drawing, but basically two single decker buses, two double decker buses, you can replace them with one bendy bus and run it at longer intervals instead of constantly bunching and spamming these buses just because, oh, feeder buses gotta have a good frequency. No, if you do this, your buses will end up empty, you kind of waste the trip, and it's not doing good. it, it's not doing good for your like current manpower constraints in the first place. You want to save your bus drivers, so you just spend one bus driver on one bendy bus and not spend two bus drivers on either a single or double decker bus. So it's simple because instead of running two buses, you run one bus, so that's one less driver. So Japan is doing this when it comes to their manpower shortage, but I don't understand why like they sort of have the mindset that like in Singapore, the feeder bus services, they gotta have a good frequency at all costs, even though the bus is gonna be empty. No, you just run one bendy bus and the bus would be used up quite well. As in like the space inside the bus would be used up quite well like sorry, like especially when you uh, time your bendy buses in such a way that there is a longer interval between buses as opposed to like just spamming buses. So when you use bendy buses, just you don't have to run. Basically, the main point is that you don't have to run your bus service at such insanely high frequencies. Just use bendy buses, and it is much easier to like regulate it as opposed to just bunching, and all of the buses would end up empty. What am I saying? It's literally a simple concept. Why am I talking so much about this? This one doesn't even give any reason why, so it's not a very constructive comment. So these are the last comments. Double decks, longer journeys, yeah. Many buses, short journeys, both high. Yeah, this is correct. I think LTA. Okay, again, this is just the deputy director. It's not the whole LTA. I've explained this before. Yeah, it's just one man's fetish for one man's fetish for. Oh my gosh, I have a cold right now. It's just one man's fetish for like 3D2S. I've seen bus service 901M in a crowded situation before my secondary school days since the introduction of the route. This is quite horrible with many commuters taking the bus during the morning peak hours or even with the double deck bus. But I kind of understood why LTA is now is now ceased to procure Bendy buses. Again, this is not LTA. It's that one person and replace them with TDs which include 3 doors instead. But however, between I would choose double deck. Okay, and anyway, this one is just based on personal preference. It's just his opinion, so that's fine. But this part is the one that is kind of off because this comment is like the part underlined is the part that it's referring to. It's very very vague. Didn't really explain why. Like it's like, but I kind of understood. I kind of understand why as to why LTA is now. But you didn't explain why you understood. Like, what exactly have you understood in the first place? It wasn't clearly mentioned. Okay, because if you take a look at this is the front and then this is the back. The front and the back, they don't really link up together, so it's quite hard to ascertain like what exactly is he referring to. But in general, I will just say that unless the road has a restriction, double-decker buses are not supposed to be on feeder services in the first place. Again, he didn't even say if it's because of like space issues or what. He's just saying very generally and very vaguely. So I cannot tell anything from this comment. Like just as it is. And okay, basically I would just say that 3D2S will never replace Bendy buses. It is just not a good replacement because nobody moves up. Oh, and the point is that because this service is 901M, this is not a 901M isn't a good example to justify whether double deckers or bendy buses are better. You should be comparing services like 302, 804, okay, maybe 806, 807, 811, and 911, especially the West Loop, 913, 912, 903. The reason why the double deckers they sort of work on 901M is because people tend to take that bus service for slightly longer distances. I would still run bendy buses on 901M, but it just so happens that in this case, like it just happens to work. But for all of these, okay, maybe except 807, I would still put bendy buses on 807, but like the fleet is so large that I don't really want to put too many bendy buses on. Okay, 807's fleet is just way too large. I would say this. But if I had a choice, I would put bendy buses, but realistically, let's just focus on the other bus services. These bus services are the ones that they just don't do well with double-decker buses, and it's just unlucky in this sense that this commenter is basing his experiences on just 901M alone. I mean, it's his observation, so nothing wrong with that, but it kind of like basing this entire, like this entire part, like basing every single one of your experiences and then, I don't know, what am I trying to say? Okay, basically, 901M basing all of your observations on 901M and then coming up with this like really, really vague conclusion and not explaining why, I think this one needs to be like elaborated a little bit more. But again, I still think you shouldn't base everything just on one service. You should go and observe these as well, like at UT, at Khatib, Admiralty, Marsiling, stuff like this. And the reason why they still have many buses on 912 is because of the school demand. Woodlands Avenue 1, before the introduction of 967, it only had 912. And to cater to like the school demand, that's why they choose to put a lot of the Bendy buses on 912. So yeah, I just think I wouldn't say this comment is like uninformed or anything. It's just his observations, but I just recommend this commenter to like really take a look at the different bus services and what is actually going on, like IRL. So yeah. So admin's video itself, uh, it's a slideshow, I guess. So we will talk about where many of you respond to us. Quite a lot of your thoughts, and it's the most talked about. Will the demand flow effective double-decker bus would be 100% fleet? If it ever becomes 100% fleet, then get ready for the complaints. In the northern part of Singapore, feeder services do play their most important role when serving residents. Okay. Uh, high demand flow to avoid any delays throughout. Okay. Oops. Okay, I just gave the admin his income, his ad revenue from up to, okay, because of the passenger flow, it brings a very big failure. Yes, correct. When commuters choose to cram in the lower deck, yeah, correct. This is a comment on as we have an increasing aging population. Anyway, this one didn't come from my mouth. People have been saying this. So yeah. So even my own parents, they feel kind of like, ugh, when climbing up and down for less than 6 stops, correct. To some people, the traffic causes a problem during peak hour, especially in the CBD. Okay, I don't really know what this one is referring to, but Bendys were not favored due to them taking out road space, which is a fair argument for CBD traffic. Okay, correct. But it may not be a major issue in heartlands, which is like basically the residential estates, correct? Where buses ply smaller low demand roads where a bendy would not have such a great impact on road space, which leaves me wondering why they did not continue with bendys just for feeder routes. Especially since most DDs deploy on feeder just have their lower deck fully occupied, having the upper deck empty. Again, this is not just my observations. Everybody has been saying the exact same thing. Okay. We can see that the trunk services do not need a double deck, but feeder services is now okay. Wait. Most of these issue is about the utilization. We do agree that not many people want to go up and down. This is not Tampines or Boon Lay where okay. Admin did say that Tampines and Boon Lay, the feeder services tend to be longer. Okay, that's not necessarily true, but the only difference is that in Tampines, they don't really have an intermediate MRT station. I know there's like Tampines East, but 291's East Loop, they don't go there. And then 291's West Loop, it completely avoids Tampines West MRT station. So again, it's not necessarily about how long or short. It also depends on whether there's like an MRT station in between, like between the terminal and the looping point. Just like in the case of 913. 912 sort of like loops at Admiralty MRT. The MRT station is at the looping point, but in both cases, the Bendy buses are actually better because again, like, it is just to facilitate the pax flow at the MRT stations, and also the fact that, like, short distance people don't move up, stuff like that. Boon Lay is like they have lakeside, so Boon Lay is technically similar to Woodlands. Like, when you think about services like 240, 243, I would say 240, yes, it's slightly longer, but like it is actually comparable to, it is basically like 302, but the loop section, the so-called Choa Chu Kang Crescent sector, is not just Choa Chu Kang Crescent in the case of 240, but it is like an entire Corporation Drive, Yung Ho Road. I don't know if I pronounced that properly, but conceptually it's the same. It's just that 240's looping point is much bigger, which I think this is admin's point, but again, the point still stands that 240 is like a bit like 302 in a case whereby, 302, there's like Choa Chu Kang Street 52 and Choa Chu Kang Crescent. Well, 240 has Corporation Drive and also has Boon Lay Place and Drive as well. So using that, it's not about how short or long the bus service is. Using that logic alone, 240 is actually way more suitable for Bendy buses. Again, because Lakeside MRT, I've talked about this before, the pax flow. But yes, thank you for raising this up. Yes, Bendy take up space, but the boarding, passenger flow, and the lighting is much faster than DD, so the time taken at the bus stop is short compared to DD. Our DDs have passenger flow problems like short trip passengers crowding at lower deck while upper deck is almost empty. Again, it's the same point. At high volume bus stops, boarding passengers have to give way for alighting passengers from both decks. I mean from the upper deck. It's kind of a phrasing error. This already takes up a lot of time per bus. If you have 5 double-decker buses queuing up, it's gonna be a while for the 5th bus. It's like, more of like, if you have 5 double-decker buses queuing up, it's going to be quite a while before the 6th bus, not the 5th bus, can pull into the bus stop. For Bendy's, it's a whole lot faster as it's using 2 doors for alighting. So basically, this point is saying that even though Bendy buses, yes, they're 18 meters in length, but the time that they spend at the bus stops is much shorter. So yeah, and I know that a lot of people, they kind of come up with the excuse, oh well, the 5 double-decker buses, they are alighting passengers at the same time, and if you use Bendy buses, only two or three of them can be at the bus stop at the same time. They kind of come up with like these excuses, but the truth is that like the 5 double-deckers are gonna spend like 5 to 6 minutes, whereas the 2 or 3 Bendy buses, I'm not good at math, but they're gonna spend like at most 1, 2, or 3 minutes, depending on how many passengers there are inside the bus. So if those buses exit the bus stop, all the buses behind can come in. So that's the reason why you use Bendy buses. Like, it's not really about like how much space it takes up whilst alighting. It's the fact that the alighting is so much faster and more significant in the first place. So yes, this comment is correct. Thumbs up. Resulting in much smoother boarding, although it takes up more space. Yeah, exactly the same thing that I've mentioned. Oh yeah, and admin is basically just showcasing this comment. Okay, 901M, I've already talked about this. Basically, yeah, you can see that I feel sorry for the bus captain. Correct. Anytime now. Yeah. As you can see, everybody is like just struggling to board. Okay, and then the boarding has finished. 1 minute and 47 seconds. And that's not the worst. The worst I have seen for 901M is about 5 to 6 minutes. This is when 901M isn't even fully loaded in the first place. Okay, he did poll his viewers. Oh my god, no. Okay, that's another ad revenue for our dear admin. Let's compare this to... Okay, he's just comparing 912, and I don't really have to like go much into this, but this is just saying, basically admin is just comparing how fast it takes for a Bendy bus or a double-decker bus to fully disembark and embark passengers. So he's saying that because they are in the office, out of touch, studying statistics, correct, and then plan according to the given set of numbers on-site observation, extremely low chance, which is correct also. To put it simple, high volume bus stops and routes, high capacity bus equals DD, which is the deputy director's preferred type. Computer simulation will cater from everybody to move up and down both decks, which is correct because like computer simulation, you're not going to like code the passenger's behavior. I mean, you can, but it's like in real life, this is just trying to say that like that deputy director is so confident that, oh, I'm going to introduce 3D2S because more passengers will be encouraged to move up when there are more stairs or doors. I've already talked about this nonsense in my previous videos, but basically, yeah, this comment is correct. Well, both DDs and Bendys have its pros and cons. No, allow more passengers. Again, double deckers do not allow more passengers than the Bendy buses. I have talked about this. It is based on the model and seating configuration. I don't understand why like a lot of people have this misconception that like, oh my god, I think they just compare Wright and A24. Okay, just take note that like Bendy bus 140, double decker bus 130 on average. I'm just saying on average, but it still depends on the bus model. So it's not even true that double deckers allow more passengers than the Bendy buses. This is not true. Doesn't take a lot of space. DD's cons cannot fit under high restrictions, bad passenger flow, even for 3D2S it's empty upper deck. Some passengers don't go out, although same issue, better Bendy pros, better passenger flow, 3-door and you know what? It is just a case of bad phrasing. Can fit under 4.5 meters, takes up a lot of whatever. Bad comfort. If you sit at a trailer, if you are sitting at a trailer and sometimes you want to vomit because you get nauseous when the bus is like swaying left and right. Okay, that's valid. But if you experience nausea and stuff like that, it would be more advisable to sit at the front. So yeah, this one is valid. It's just that like in the whole grand scheme of things, we're comparing Bendy buses and double-decker buses, and this bad comfort thing isn't really a valid point when you're discussing pax flow. It's a whole other issue that's not limited to just Bendy buses. And then he says, also my decision is single deck law. Okay, this is just demand surveying the single decker bus. Yeah, as you can see, single decker buses, they take the least time to clear. So yeah. Well, you know who put a stop to this, the deputy director. Okay, that's the end of the video. My goodness, this video is almost 50 minutes long. But to be honest, I still think you people have good points. It's just y'all need to phrase it better. And the front and the back of your comment, like I've said before, it has to link up. So yeah, that's about it.